Welcome to the Sincerely God podcast. I'm Sarah, and I believe that God is speaking to all of us all the time and in many different ways. For me, the primary way that I listen is through two-way journaling. And in this podcast, I share excerpts from my prior journaling time with God, which are really inspirational messages spoken from the perspective of God to you. I'll share more about what two-way journaling is and explore other methods that might be helpful for you to listen to God in your own unique way. I'm just an ordinary person who gets to hear from an extraordinary God, and I believe you can too. Thanks for joining me. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about what two-way journaling is. I believe that God is speaking to all of us all the time and in many different ways. I was first introduced to two-way journaling about 5 years ago, and the way that I was kind of initially taught was through a book from Dr. Mark Verkler called 4 Keys to Hearing God's Voice. I know there are other authors and teachers that share similar concepts, but this is just the way that I was first introduced, and it was incredibly helpful for me. So I want to share what my experience has been, and I also just encourage you to try it as well. So Dr. Verkler describes 4 keys, or really just actions, that he adapts from Habakkuk 2 verses 1 and 2. And kind of my summarized version of those keys is: first, to be still; 2, to focus on Jesus; 3, to tune in to free-flowing thoughts; and then 4, to write them down. So first, to be still, that can look a lot of different ways, but I think the primary thing is calm your mind. So if you've got a lot of distracting thoughts going on, first of all, if you've got a lot of distractions in your environment, try to find a quiet space where you can be alone, where there are not a lot of things going on that are going to distract you, but also try to calm your mind. So that you may need to start by, writing down all the to-dos that are floating around in your head to try to get them, out and to the side. So whatever it may be, to try and kind of calm and still your mind. And then second, to focus on Jesus. So for me, that might be kind of picturing in my mind a familiar Bible story about Jesus, imagining myself in that story, or what that story looks like, what Jesus maybe looks like is doing in that particular story, maybe listening to worship music. There's a lot of different ways that I kind of tune in or connect more, focusing on God. And really, I think if you maybe don't have the same beliefs that I do in God or in Jesus, you can also just tune in, really try to focus on that pure, authentic core of you. Who is that truest part in you? Or, how do you envision this source of good in the world and, wisdom that is available to you, to all, really. So I think that you can still benefit from this approach, even if you're not, holding the exact same beliefs that I hold. And then tune in to free-flowing thoughts. So the idea is that we're having thoughts in our mind that are our own thoughts, but we're also having thoughts in our mind that are from God, or from this source of love and wisdom in the universe. And if you can kind of tune in to those free-flowing thoughts and then write them down, it allows that flow to keep going. I know for me, when I would try to kind of tune in to maybe God's thoughts in my mind, I always had a hard time. I still have a hard time, if I'm not using the journaling method, to discern, okay, wait, I will interrupt myself because I'll be judging, okay, well, was that me? Was that God? I don't know, was that correct? Am I making that up? And when you stop and halt that flow, then you're not getting the full benefit. So for me, having the writing was a way to almost occupy my logical mind, this part of me that was trying to judge and decipher as the words are coming. Instead of doing that as each word is coming, I was able to focus instead on just, writing out the words. And then later on, you can go back and apply that kind of wisdom, that discernment of, okay, what seems to be true or accurate or resonating with me versus not. So it really worked so incredibly well for me. Now, I had already been journaling out my prayers for a year or two before I first tried this method. For me, I wanted to spend time in prayer, but I would often get distracted when I was just kind of praying in my mind. And so I started hand journaling, handwriting out my prayers as a way to kind of keep me focused in that space. So I think I had already kind of built this rhythm or this habit just by doing that, kind of handwriting out my prayers. And then for me, I know I am definitely a word person. So for me, this works very well. I have friends that are more visual, that they tend to maybe see images in their minds, pictures, movies in their minds, or friends that are more emotional, and they're going to be more feeling or sensing in their hearts when God is communicating to them as their more natural or first way. Whereas for me, visually is usually more difficult for me, or even sensing in my heart is usually more difficult for me. Whereas thoughts in my mind, words are my more natural way of kind of just communicating in general. So the book, 4 Keys to Hearing God's Voice, it gives examples and it gives prompts to help you try it out. I loved reading the examples, honestly, because he includes examples from his own free writing, his own two-way journaling with God, but he also includes examples from, other people that have done their two-way journaling with God. And it's so cool to see, yes, there are differences, just like if you are having a conversation with, let's say, your good friend that you've been friends since high school versus maybe your parent or a mentor or a child, you're going to communicate slightly differently to each one of them, but it's still you. And the cool thing was seeing these other examples was you could see the uniqueness for each person, but there was definitely a common thread of just kind of how God speaks. So that was really cool. I really liked that. And so there were prompts to really practice and try it out. And one of the first prompts in the book, he had you read the Bible passage, 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 18 to chapter 2, verse 16, and kind of read it, maybe read it more than once, underline, highlight what parts stick out to you. And then in this journaling method, kind of ask God, what is the truth that you want me to receive from this scripture? And I read that passage, and really the part that stood out to me, that resonated with me, was the very, very last verse, 1 Corinthians 2:16. It says, "For who can know the Lord's thoughts? Who knows enough to teach him? But we understand these things, for we have the mind of Christ." So really that we have the mind of Christ. And that's really, I think, the premise of this two-way journaling is we are connected to God in our minds. We're connected to him in our hearts, but we're also connected to him in our minds. And so if we have the mind of Christ, then we have his thoughts in our minds. And so we have this ability to tune in, to listen through the thoughts in our own mind. So I kind of did this exercise, and I sort of just started writing out parts of that scripture that resonated with me, and I just kept writing. And as I was writing, it just clicked immediately. And I want to actually share with you basically the first words that I was able to tune in and kind of listen through this two-way journaling. This is what I wrote down. Don't be so quick to dismiss or ignore familiar thoughts or ways of thinking as you learn to explore my spirit. I've already given you my mind, just as I had already given you my spirit flowing inside your body. Trust me, be open to me. New ways of healing will come. Release, let go. I am with you. I am directing you. I have always been here directing you from within. Trust me. Praise me for who I am, who you are learning that I am. I am here. Always, I am with you. I am guiding you. I am in control. Stop your worrying. Have fun with me. Come with me on this journey I have prepared for you. So wow, I mean, when I first experienced this, it was mind-blowing. It was just so incredible. It's very helpful to read the Bible. I've gained so much through reading the Bible or hearing what even other people share with me of what they've experienced from God. But to be able to hear directly, uniquely, specifically for you, whether that's encouragement that you need to hear, instruction, answers to questions, just it's so transformative. It's truly life-changing. So for me, two-way journaling has just become my primary way of connecting with God, of listening, of receiving, and really applying what I'm hearing to my life. So, two-way journaling is very similar to the concept of free writing, which I also think is incredibly helpful. I know authors can sometimes use free writing if they're having like writer's block. It also can be hugely helpful to process, feelings, thoughts, and emotions. So, if you want to try free writing, which is different than the two-way journaling, but also very helpful, you can start by writing out like what you're thinking and feeling, just letting the thoughts, like whatever comes into your mind, just let them flow, write them down, on a paper. And I think sometimes with free writing, we can uncover thoughts and feelings that maybe were just below the surface, that we couldn't necessarily speak out or recognize, in our full conscious minds. And sometimes you can get to like that thing beneath the thing. If you're having an emotion, a feeling that you're not sure what it is, you're feeling sad, you're feeling angry, but if you can actually like free write out really all of your feeling, like first of all, I think there's benefit of just kind of getting those emotions out, those thoughts out, but it can also help you sometimes identify maybe what's like the thing beneath the thing. And then once you get your thoughts out on paper, you can also evaluate them from a more impartial perspective. I think we can tend to have sort of irrational fears, insecurities that are kind of driving some of what we're doing, thinking, feeling. But when we can get them out on paper, we can kind of say, wait a minute, is that actually true? I may have this feeling in me that is saying this about me or this about the other person, but is that really true? And really having that ability to kind of take an impartial perspective, that's helpful when you can kind of get it in black and white on a piece of paper in front of you. So I just encourage you to try it out, have fun. Don't stress about it. Don't judge the thoughts as they're coming. Just write whatever comes. If it ends up being just free writing of what you're thinking, feeling inside, that's good too. And you don't need to share with anybody if you don't want to. So, there's not risk there. You're just doing it for you. So I just encourage you to try it out. You can, after you write out whatever's coming to mind, you can go back and read it and see what resonates versus not, what seems to be hitting that core, that authentic part of you as being true versus not, because we can certainly have all our own thoughts or, negative things kind of mixed in, and it's not like it's all or nothing, right? There's going to be maybe one particular sentence or thought just really resonates as true and impactful, but then maybe, the next 3 sentences don't. That's fine. Take what resonates and ignore the rest. Dr. Mark Verkler does also recommend that as you're learning, you're trying to kind of practice, hone this ability to receive or tune in this way to get feedback from others. So if you actually do get comfortable enough where you want to share with someone, people who you trust that have that connection, are authentic with themselves, maybe have their own way of really tuning in and connecting with God, see what resonates with them, because that gives you another perspective. And especially if they are spiritually connected, they're gonna, whatever method that they are accustomed to receiving or listening to God, they can still kind of tune in and resonate like, yes, this seems true, this feels right. So that's something that you can try. So one thing that I do want to just remind is that God is love. And so, God's thoughts for you, they're going to be encouraging, they're going to be affirming, they're going to be positive and helpful. Sure, I've gotten things in my two-way journaling where God is telling me like, hey, this isn't the best path for you. When you do this thing, this is unhelpful. You need to change this approach. Like, yes, there's going to be like guidance and instruction to change our behaviors or our methods sometimes, but overarching, it is going to be positive, it is going to be encouraging, it's going to be helpful. So if you're writing out thoughts and they are not those things, if they are negative, if they are judging, that's not God, and you should discard those. Maybe it's a good way to see kind of what's churning inside of you, and then you can see it and look and see, okay, wait, is this actually true? So just keep that in mind. But yeah, I encourage you to try it out, have fun with it, and I would love to hear how it goes. You can leave a comment on YouTube, Spotify, or you can find me on Instagram and Facebook under Sincerely God Quotes. So I'd love, drop a comment. You can send me a direct message. Just let me know how it went. If you tried it out, it would be really fun to hear how it's going. Or if this is something you're already doing and maybe you've learned some additional insights that are helpful, that would be awesome to hear as well. So I encourage you to try it out. For more resources, including a lot of free resources, you can go to Dr. Mark Berkler's website. It is cwgministries.org. And I'll put a link in the show notes that takes you directly to his page about 4 keys to hearing God's voice. So he gives more detail there. I definitely recommend the book, but especially if you're not much of a reader, you don't need to read the book. He has a ton of resources online, gives a good explanation, and I think there's even like a video and a handout. So I definitely recommend you check it out. Or also check out other authors and teachers that teach similar methods of kind of tuning in to the way that God is communicating to you through this journaling method. So anyway, I just encourage you to try it out and let me know how it goes. Thanks for tuning in to the Sincerely God podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and share with your friends. If you'd like more information, you can go to my website, sincerelygodquotes.com. There you'll find links to my social media, as well as an ability to get your own copy of Sincerely God, a collection of quotes, either the book or the prayer journal. Until next time, keep listening to how God is speaking to you.
It's all inside you, waiting to be